Hey guys, Connor here from Team ETB with Dylan. We're playing a game on the Warped Ruin battle plan, Ogres versus Slaanesh. In Dylan's list, we have a unit of hunters who did their pre-game redeploy, essentially. They just like teleported up here and they can't move on the first turn. He's got 5 gluttons, 6 iron guts with a tyrant in the background. The tyrant has the trait where people can't heal or return slain models within 6. The artifact where he can't run, but infantry wholly within 12 of them ignores the first point of damage every phase. The Maw Pit, a Butcher behind, 10 more Gluttons with 2 Maul Beast Cav, and then 5 Gluttons. He's in the battle formation where they heal whenever they use the Eat 'em Alive trait. I'm playing Heat Knights of Slaanesh, the one where the infantry moves d6 at end of turn. I got 5 Seekers, the Scarbrand Regiment of Renown, Shalaxi Hellbane with 10 Painbringers, 10 Painbringers, Lord of Hysteria, who has Center of Attention and the Rod of Misrule, Shard Speaker, and 10 of the Blissbarb Seekers. They have Obsession with Control, so they're going to pick an objective. It's going to be this objective, and while they're contesting it, they have a 5-up ward and +5 objective control score. Dylan outdropped me, and I assume you're making me go first?
Sounds about right.
All right, so we will come back at the end of Slaanesh hero phase. All right, end of Slaanesh, start of turn in hero phase. I'm the attacker, so I only got 1 Fury dice. Dylan got 2. I made this unit of Painbringers a Paragon, along with Shalaxi because she's a War Master. I started by casting the +1 to wound spell, as well as the Death Mortals, Mortals on Death spell on these guys. Tried to cast a Manifestation, I think it was Swords, and I failed. Then Dylan tried to countercast Swords as well, and he failed.
Yep.
And I failed I tried to do the Feigns ability on the 10-man unit of Gluttons, and I failed. And that was everything. So we'll just head into Slaanesh movement phase. Alright guys, end of Slaanesh turn 1. I just moved up these guys here to tag this objective so that I could get more than Dylan. I centralized all these guys with the Hysteria, Shard Speaker, Shalaxi. Moved these guys up to take this objective and parked Scarbrand on the place of power to start banking Fury points. Did nothing. Dylan did nothing in any of the phases, and neither did I, so we just go to end of turn, where I score, I believe it's 7 points for 1 and more, because I don't have a pair. And then we will just head into Ogre's turn 1. Alright, end of Ogre, turn 1 hero phase. Scarbrand hit the place of power to get me 2 Fury. The Butcher cast Blood Feast on these guys for +1 to hit, and he got himself into the Maw Pit. I tried to countercast Pendulum and used her ability, and she failed it, failed the spell, took mortal wounds, and then I had to rally her as well. So 2 CP, well spent. Alright, end of Ogre, turn 1 movement phase. We had these guys stay still because they use their ability in the deployment phase, but he just ran these Gluttons up to take this objective from me. These Maul Beast Cav moved up to get obscured in the forest. The Iron Guts and the Tyrant kind of just hung out. Gluttons with the +1 to hit moved up. He also failed to get the 6-up ward from the Butcher off on them. And then these guys just walked up in an attempt to charge the Seekers here, but the Seekers spent a CP, redeployed 5, so they'll hopefully be out of range, because I don't think Dylan's going to try to tag the Painbringers to chain off them, but we'll see. And that's everything. Alright, so end of Ogre turn 1. He shot a couple shots here. He was half range because he's in the forest. Did a little bit of damage. I cover fired into those Gluttons and did a whole 1 damage. He attempted to charge over here and failed it. Didn't try to charge anything else. And then the Maw Pit sunk this piece and killed off one of these guys. I actually used one of my rage dice in the shooting phase, going down to 2 rage dice to try and negate the damage, but I didn't negate enough. So end of the turn for Dylan. He's going to score 1 and more, because he has no pair. And then we can just roll priority. Just may as well roll that on camera. 3 and 4, so it's going to be Ogre choice, and we'll come back at the start of battle round 2. Alright, here we are. Top turn 2 for Slaanesh. Dylan gave me the turn. I did not use my reroll. I made the Shard Speaker Paragon, so now I have the 3 Paragons here. Start of turn, Scarbrand got me more rage dice. These guys got the +1 to wound spell cast on them, along with the +1 attack from the Lord of Hysteria. So the Lord of Hysteria used the Temptation this turn. I'll mark that. The Shard Speaker cast +1 to wound on these Painbringers. And then my last spell was Shalaxi summoning the Pendulum. I think that's everything. Dylan tried to countercast Swords again, and he failed that. So we will go on to Slaanesh movement phase. End of Slaanesh, turn 2 movement phase. I kind of just moved my forces over here. Still debating if I'm going to charge those center Painbringers or not. But Scarbrand got his ass up there. And these guys just went to try to secure this objective as well as pepper some shots into those gluttons there. So we'll see how it goes. Also, he failed his Trog Guts ability to give the ward save to the gluttons. Alright, end of Slaanesh charge phase, and we just did combat abilities as well. I did not charge over here, so I just charged the Painbringers that are all juiced up. The Seekers and Scarbrand. The Painbringers used the Temptation Excessive Agility to have the bubble of -1 to hit. And then we're going to start all the fighting. Alright, end of Slaanesh, turn 2. It's actually pretty good. I think I played these guys wrong. I didn't take this objective and I kind of just left them out to dry there. I probably should have run them over here because I forgot I had the Rod of Misrule on these guys, or on her. So it allowed them to power through off these gluttons and steal that objective. So I actually didn't need this objective, but c'est la vie. The combat here actually went really well. I killed 5 gluttons between just like attacks from the Seekers and the Painbringers, and then the Mortals reflecting back. And he only killed 1 Painbringer through an all-out defense and -1 to hit. Scarbrand absolutely butchered these guys, but not before they did 9 damage to him. And then end of turn stuff, I moved or shifted around all my infantry with my battle formation. Like I said, did the power through to take the objective. But Dylan did the Eat 'em Alive ability. Rolled the mortal wounds that you do against me. Eat 'em Alive does mortal wounds.
Take 2.
So 1 will die. And then he chose to do the one where it subs 1 from the rend of my attacks.
Raw and bloody meat.
Yep. And then I'll score no tactics, but I will score 10 points at the end of turn 2. So we'll go into Ogres turn, bottom of turn 2. All right. End of Ogres turn 2, hero phase, and start of turn. I used the Lord of Hysteria to bang this place of power. Got 2 rage dice, so I'm up to 6 to Dylan's 1. Dylan cast the +1 to hit spell onto these gluttons here. The reason he didn't do it on the Iron Guts was because they are affected by the Feign right now. So if he does +1 to hit and like flies them in here, it literally won't do anything. So he did that. You know what? Just roll your 3-up ward thing because we're going into the movement phase right now.
All right, in we go.
Yep.
Hey,
so
I got
get
it.
the 6-up ward from the Butcher onto the gluttons.
Trog Gut.
End of Ogres, turn 2 movement phase. Hunters moved up here so that they can harass these guys and prep to do one of his tactics, which I didn't mention our tactics. I believe it's Siege and Burning. Whatever, we'll go over it at end of turn. Gluttons moved up to charge here. Beasts moved up to charge here and take this objective. Iron Guts stayed at a range of the Pendulum, same with the Tyrant, but they're moving up to try to get one of Dylan's tactics. And that was it. I moved the Pendulum up so I can prep it for next turn to at least deal some mortal wounds if I want. And we'll go into the shooting phase. End of Ogre shooting phase. He shot me here, killed one of my horses, and then I did the Temptation from the Shard Speaker and gave -2 to charge to these guys because the Iron Guts were just out of range for it. And if I had done it with like the Lord of Hysteria, since he's not a Paragon, Dylan would have just gotten to choose the end closer, which would have done nothing. And no cover fire from me, so we'll get into Ogre charge and combat phase abilities. Alright, end of Ogre. Turn 2 charge phase was actually pretty eventful. So he boxed me in with a charge here from all these units while tagging this objective. Then he used Bull Charge with these gluttons. And because of the way he boxed me in, I couldn't get out of range of any of them, so he did 4 mortal wounds there. Then he charged over here. He wanted the Tyrant in here because there was no way for him to be able to engage a bunch and keep the 5-up ward if he didn't charge the Tyrant. So he charged everything like this. Then he used the Iron Gut ability, which allows them to also use Bull Charge, and use it on these guys. The reason he did that is because if I piled away from him to get away from the mortal wounds, that would give him room to be able to pile in a ton of models into my unit to get attacks, which he's trying to kill them for his tactics. So he knew that I was going to have to stay there and just take the hit from the mortals, so I ended up killing 2 models there. They killed 1 here, I believe, or... Oh no, it only did 2 wounds because I have a 5-up ward. and they passed like 2 of their wards or 1. Anyway, that's all the charge phase stuff, so we'll get on to combat phase. End of Ogre charge phase. No, combat phase abilities. Sure, I'm just doing this anyway, combat phase abilities. So Dylan, what were your combat phase abilities? You gave -1 to wound to these guys here. And I think that was pretty much everything.
That's it for me. Yeah.
What the main things that I did was I used the temptation here for the -1 to hit aura, and then Shalaxi, since she's Paragon, used her temptation to make it so my army has crit 2 hits against this unit of Iron Guts. And then we'll come back after the actual combat phase. All right, end of battle round 2, end of Ogre's turn 2, and it was a low scoring turn, but he did a lot on his turn. So he only scored 3 because he doesn't hold a pair and he doesn't hold more, but he almost annihilated this unit, leaving only 3. The Iron Guts and the Tyrant combined with the Gluttons almost killed this Painbringer unit down to 1 man. These guys took some damage and we pretty much barely killed anything. I think we killed we did some wounds to the Iron Guts, but then at end of turn, he used Eat 'em Alive in combination with his healing battle trait when they use Eat 'em Alive. So now these guys have -1 rend. These guys have crit 2 hit. These guys have -1 rend, -1 rend. They kept -1 rend, and the Tyrant went for -1 to the ward of units he attacks. And then he used the Maw Pit to detonate this and did a bunch of mortals to all my guys around here. And I believe that is everything, so we can just roll. The current score is 17 for Slaanesh and 10 for Ogres. And we'll roll into turn 2. 6. So we'll be going into Slaanesh turn 3. So end of Slaanesh turn 3. Or sorry, hero phase turn 3. Scarbrand fucking tried to use the place of power, get Fury Dice, roll the 1. Passed all his wards, then rallied to 6 health. I tried to get fight first here and failed. Put +1 to wound on those guys. She cast her -1 to wound, or -1 save spell on them because she's a Paragon. I made these guys the Paragon now because the other Painbringers died. I used Center of Attention trait to give these guys -1 to hit, and all my whole army against them +1 to hit. He tried to cast Blood Feast on his Tyrant, and I unbound it. And I believe that was everything I did in the hero phase, so we'll go to Slaanesh turn 3 movement. And Slaanesh turn 3 movement phase. I retreated these guys using their ability so they don't take any damage. I did 4 mortals here, but the trait reduced it by 1. Just kind of moved all these guys around, big boys coming up, and those guys just secured that objective. And Dylan gave a ward save to the Butcher. All right, end of charge phase and combat phase abilities. I charged Shalaxian, Scarbrand in. I had to spend a CP to reroll his charge because he rolled a 4 on 3 dice. That was all my charges, but then the combat phase abilities, Scarbrand did no mortals here because I only rolled 2. He warded 1 and then reduced by 1. I did the -1 to hit aura on Slaanesh units, the temptation with these guys, and then she did the temptation to make my army crit 2 hit. Obviously not Scarbrand, but everybody else against this. And that was it, so we'll just get into Slaanesh combat. End of Slaanesh turn 3. It did not go as well as I wanted. The nice thing was Shalaxi did kill the Iron Guts, not before they did 11 damage to her, though. But then Scarbrand came in, killed 1 Iron Gut, and then got murdered by Gluttons after. They got whittled away slightly, the Twin Souls, but I think it was the Tyrant. Oh, no, the Tyrant actually was the one that did the most damage to Scarbrand, and then the Gluttons finished him off.
Yeah, Tyrant put 9 into him.
But at the end of the turn, he chose to, when he did the Eat 'em Alive ability, he did mortals here. He just kept the same buffs on them. And then he did some mortals with the Maw Pit. And then at end of turn, I'm going to score 10 because I have the pair as well as more. And I just barely missed my tactic because Scarbrand decided to kill himself. So we'll go Ogres, bottom of turn 3. End of Ogre, start of turn, and hero phase, bottom of turn 3. I placed a powered with the Lord of Hysteria and got 2 rage dice. Dylan tried to cast +1 to hit on the Gluttons there, but miscasted a mortal to himself. And that was everything in the hero phase. So we'll get back to probably around the charge phase. All right, end of Ogre's turn 3. It was a very good turn. This combat is still raging up in the middle. 2 Twin Souls left versus 2 Gluttons and a Tyrant, and I guess a Manifestation. He obliterated these guys, powering through and killing the train piece. So he takes this objective, gets a pair, gets his tactic, the Burning Assault for all 4 quarters, and scores 15. And then we can just roll off into turn 4. 3, so we tie, so I will definitely take the turn. Going into Slaanesh, turn 4. End of Slaanesh, top of turn 4. By the way, the score is 25 Ogres, 27 Slaanesh. I summoned the Cogs to get -1 to hit aura. She used her ability. Oh shit, actually, I should double check that. Whatever. She failed her ability and took mortals. I actually think it's only 2 mortals, so she might still be a paragon, but I'll just double check it afterwards. Either way, he unbound the spell for -1 to save here. Shalaxi rallied 3, got crit 2 against these guys, the Overwhelming Acquiescence spell. And then Dylan counter banished the Pendulum. And we will come back probably at the end of Slaanesh, since we're just wrapping it up anyway. Alright, end of Slaanesh, turn 4. It's looking grim, boys. Obviously, these guys murdered the Twin Soul, and he switched him to run in charge and then to crit 2 hits. I moved over here to get my tactic, forgetting that he was going to sinkhole this terrain, which he did. Almost killing him, but I used my rage dice to stop him from dying. She came up, and even on a 3-up save between the all-out defense and the reducing Ren by 1, Shalaxi just detonated the Mournfang. So that was nice.
Maul Beast.
Maul Beast, yes. But I only ended up scoring 8 points at end of turn because I only have these 3, so I have no pair, not more. So it's 3 on primary. And then I got Siege, I believe was the tactic, for holding hands over there. So I'll score 8 points, putting it to 35 Slaanesh, 25 Ogres, going into bottom of turn 4 Ogres. So we just skipped over a bunch just because the turns are getting pretty damn short. So the Butcher hopped into the pit and cast +1 to hit on the Tyrant. The Tyrant auto ran and moved up. Shalaxi redeployed 6, but then he rolled an 11 to charge and made it anyway. Those guys charged the Cogs and shot at Shalaxi and did 3 damage. Roll your bull charge here to do the mortals.
3 units within 3 for a bad D3.
1 mortal? Yep. She takes it.
The trick is...
Alright, and then we'll get back to it at the end of Ogres turn 4. Alright, so end of Ogres turn 4. He managed to just barely, with Rage Dice, kill Shalaxi and almost killed himself in the process. Because even when Shalaxi attacked back, she didn't kill him, which was hilarious. And then Dylan's going to score 15 because he killed the Fugitive, which was Scarbrand, so he gets the 5 for that, plus the 10 on primary. And then we're just going to call it here because that puts Dylan at 40 to my 35. I mean, we can roll Prio just to see what happens. I still have my reroll if I want it, so I may as well use it. Nope. So Dylan takes it here, but there's no point because he may as well just score his tactic anyway, and at max I could probably score like 3 points. So the end score would likely be 50 for Dylan to 38 for me. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.